everybody, and welcome to Crosswires. It is Jay, and today I am joined by my friend James, who you also know as the other co-host of Crosswires. Hey, James.
That was a slightly odd intro there, Jay. Hi. Yes, I'm
trying. This is my second time hosting.
To be fair, this is Jay's second time hosting this podcast, and she's doing a great job. Hello, it's really nice to be here. And for those of you looking at the squad shot, yes, I am wearing new headphones. Yes, they are Beats. Yes, I look ridiculous. I really wanted the blue ones, but the deal I got on these,
nothing beats that deal.
I'm going to say for our guest, it's not too late to back out of a show if you want to.
If I backed out of Jay's life every time she made a terrible pun, I think we'd have been not friends.
Yeah.
Ever.
Ditto.
So the other voice you hear is my amazing friend Amanda Sloan, and I have known Amanda for years, actually longer than I've ever known James. I got to know Amanda years ago on Twitter, talking about hippie villages floating on the water. And some days I would love to go to those and get away from everything else in life that's going on.
I know the number of times that we've talked about like running away from everything and just joining those floating hippie villages is the dream.
Can I just say we've got our episode title?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, I have met Amanda in person because Amanda and her partner Thom came to my state, and we actually had coffee. Fun fact, at the same grocery store chain that I work at.
It's true. We got a lovely Starbucks inside a lovely insert chain grocery store here. It was lovely. Meeting Jay was really cool. And fun fact, Jay is very tall. Like very tall. And it's hilarious because at the time, Jay's whole online persona was Frasley, a small gnome in World of Warcraft. And so seeing this giant person coming towards you when you're kind of expecting a small gnome, okay, maybe not actually a small gnome, but somebody not that tall. I was like, oh, hello, as I'm staring up from my little hobbit-sized body here.
And in about a week, from this recording, I will be meeting James in person. And James, be prepared. I am very tall,
and I'm very short. To be fair, I will be no point hiding my shortness. I'm only 5'8".
You're taller than me.
It'll be kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito in Twins.
Hey, I'm not that short.
Okay,
or that Danny DeVito. But what a film.
Some similarities, maybe.
I don't know what it is about this podcast, but we seem to be able to combine a tech podcast with constant movie references.
Yeah. And what's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. Movies wouldn't exist without tech.
Hey, look, I'll be really honest. So the episode that, at the time of recording, it's next to go out on my feed is the one with Action Retro, Sean from Action Retro. And in there, we talked about Mike Judge, the creator of King of the Hill and Office Space. I am plucking up the courage to tweet Mike Judge directly and invite him onto the show.
Do it.
Yes, do it.
Shoot your shot.
Yeah. Anyway, Jay, sorry, sure.
So Amanda, what is it that you do? Because you do so many amazing things.
I know this is, I wouldn't call them amazing, but I do so many things. And I've actually had quite a lot of difficulty recently trying to label myself. And so I kind of don't. I'm just I do all of these things. I have kind of narrowed it down to 6 things. I am a freelance writer, freelance copywriter, and a creative writer on the side. I also am a podcast host, and I co-host Geek Herring, which is a podcast about intersectional feminism and inclusion in geek culture. And I have another podcast in the works. It's going to be hopefully coming out fairly soon, launching soon. So spoilers, it's coming. There is a new one coming. And I am also a podcast educator. I have a podcast, do-it-yourself, learn how to podcast course, or also learn how to become a podcast virtual assistant, which is quite a useful field to be in right now. It's in demand. I also do tarot readings and run tarot workshops. And I have a blog where I'm kind of trying to pull all of this together.
And two other things is you are a mod for our upcoming Twitch channel, as well as you also do Twitch streams. I don't know how you do it.
I also do that. I also do that, run a busy Discord server, and which is in the process of transitioning to Geek Herring Productions, which is opening up to our community to just invite people to have their own shows, talk shows, sessions on our Twitch channel, and if they want to run workshops in the Discord.
I love that because it's all about giving that voice to people that may not want to take all the stuff and the time to put it all together. Because I know James and I are spending a lot of time trying to figure out our channel, my former Twitch channel, rebranded, and it's taken a lot of work. I mean, Twitch streaming is not easy, and I love that you're opening that up for people to both get seen, but also be able to take the worry off of that. They can focus on the content.
Exactly. I think one of our hopes is that it makes content creation like Twitch or workshop running more accessible to everyone.
So one reason I had you on here is I kind of figured, and I'm going to bring back some of the old segues from my former podcast. I figured that you might have some tips to help make freelance more accessible to people. So what do you specifically do for your freelance work?
I am a freelance copywriter, would be my main source of income. So I'm kind of split into two sections. So I do copywriting for podcasts. So I write their show notes. And I've been doing that exclusively for 4 years now, which is a lot of fun. I've worked on a lot of really cool podcasts, and I always seem to learn something new. And then the other side is I write blogs and social media content for other businesses. One of my clients right now is a LinkedIn expert, I guess, who has an agency providing blogs and LinkedIn posts to her clients. So that's what I'm doing right now. Show notes and LinkedIn posts.
And I have worked with you in a professional capacity on our former podcast network. I mean, it's still there, but not in the same capacity it was. And you are phenomenal. Like you helped keep me in check. You helped always look at what's going out there, and even keeping things organized. And I was always impressed at your skill. I mean, because you know your stuff. I mean, I just got to say, I wish my writing was as good as your writing is.
Oh, thank you. Just takes a lot of writing. Be prepared for people to tell you that your writing is terrible and rip it apart, and then build it back up with you. And try not to take it personally.
Yes, because you give me some really good tips on writing, and I've actually tried to keep some of those in my writing that I've done since we worked together. It's hard because you put all that work into that writing, and you're like, it's my baby, it's so crafted well, and you're like, oh, but you're right, it needs work there and there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tough to be told that this is not very well written. And actually, to be honest, it happened to me last week. I took on a new client, and that somebody else in my team had been working on. And so I submitted my work, and he was like, I might be being very overprotective, and then ripped it apart. And I was like, this is fine. This is fine. And inside I'm breaking. I'm like, okay, no problem.
I mean, it's one thing to get it picked apart by a client. I was recently writing the memories of our granddad for his funeral, and my sister was fine, my mum was fine, but my dad being the methodical attention to detail engineer he is, it's like, that doesn't read right. I'm like, Dad, it's my thing for a funeral. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
But he was right. There were certain things that I'd worded badly, and actually, with the changes, it did read better.
Yeah.
One question which isn't in my show notes, I had for you, show notes, because does it take you time to sort of pick up the, what's the word I'm looking for, the vibe of a particular podcaster's style and how they want their show notes to come across?
Yes. So I work on 2 different podcast production teams as a writer, and one we have the same podcast assigned to us, and that's our podcast, and we just work on it for however long the client is with us, basically. And so they're so much easier to pick up a voice and add personal touches and write as though you are the host of that podcast. Another team that I work for, we don't get assigned a podcast. We just get given the next podcast that comes up. And it's so much more difficult to figure out the voice of that, of the host. And they're just so much more generic when you don't get a chance to work with the same podcast, because it's like, I don't know anything about this, and who you are. So it's, they're just more technical, and like, this is what it is, full stop.
Yeah, I actually experienced that last night. James actually writing a paragraph has me, and like we were on the call together, and James did a great job of knowing my voice, knowing how I talk, and even put in jokes. I'm like, wow, you know me so well. Yeah,
I'm sure that paragraph was full of puns and capitals and exclamation points.
Yes. Yeah. I had to turn off Grammarly at one point.
Honestly.
So for those who may be curious on how to get involved in freelance work, because we live in an age, I call it the I can age and not the I can't age. When did you get involved, and how did you get involved in freelance work?
I started freelancing part-time in the late spring of 2017 and was full-time by the end of the summer. I started out with Upwork, which, spoiler alert, I will probably come up later. I do not recommend the platform. But that's where I started. And my first job ever was writing cheese recipes. I got to write 3 cheese recipes for $15. And I thought that I was the biz. I was like, yeah, $15. And I just got to write what was in my head. This is awesome. And then I got this really cool opportunity came through to write for a gaming website. And they wanted me to write like 20 or so articles or something. And it came through while I was on holiday with a group of friends. And I was like, okay, except I ended up working like 90% of that holiday. And I was like, I feel like this is not it. Like, this isn't it. And they became like really demanding. And then I looked back on the Upwork contract and they wanted these 20 articles for $20. So I think at about article 12, I just was like, you know what? For $20, like, I do not want the rest. I don't care. I don't want this. And I just like stopped. And it wasn't too long after that I found the 5-day VA challenge by Digital Nomad Kit, which is a 5-day challenge basically that it's run on Facebook that teaches you the fundamentals and the mindset work to become like what you need to learn to become a virtual assistant, somebody working online. And that's how it started. I did that course in June of 2017, got my first client based on her principles in July of 2017, got Thom in as well. And we both quit our jobs on August 18th and started full-time together.
And what I find fascinating about that, just a cool side tangent, is that's also how you met Monica.
It is how I met Monica, my co-host and partner in crime of many, many ventures and activities. She was the very, very, very first person that ever signed up to the Digital Nomad Kit course back in December 2016. And she kind of made it her mission to find weirdos and to bring them into the course, like every time it ran. So I was like, there is this really like weird, but nice, but weird person, like blowing up my DMs. You know, she really wants me to join this course. Like, I guess I should. And then I did. And then, I mean, that weird person was Monica. And I mean, 5.5 years later, we're like the best of friends. And I couldn't imagine my life without her.
And I've been to the course. I did not go into freelance at the moment. Just like right now with my life, it did not align. But the course is amazing. Like I learned a lot of good things from it, and things that I have definitely taken even into my current line of work, and some of the stuff that we're doing with Crosswires. I've brought some of the ideals that I learned there. So yeah, it's a great course, and it truly is a course I recommend signing up for, because you never know where it'll lead you to. Yeah,
there's the free portion, the 5 days. The owner of Digital Nomad Kit, Hannah Dixon, she host workshops, like free workshops, low cost entry workshops as well. And then there is her signature program, which I did invest in 5 years ago when let's just say it was not, it was very underpriced at the time, very underpriced. And yeah, it's great. And it has changed so many people's lives. So I would recommend checking it out. Personal experience here. It's changed lives, including mine.
So I have to say that your history is very good. I'm sorry. I could not avoid a cheese bun.
Who can ever avoid a cheese bun? I don't know.
Did you just say your history is very good?
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
This is what you knew James, when you invited me onto the team, you knew you were going to get this.
I don't know what cheese has to... Oh, well, it does have to do, but that was like 10 minutes ago. You've been holding on to that.
I know. The pun is like a monster in my head waiting to come out.
Jay, that was incredibly cheesy.
I'm sorry, but I thought it was really good. So, Amanda, before you get upset with me, what are the tools you use to do your job, like especially tools to help with your writing and collaborating with your clients?
Yeah. So thankfully, all of the tools are available on the wonderful internet, which make communicating with clients so much easier. So Slack is pretty much essential. One of my clients doesn't use it, and I'm like, but why do we need to send 100 emails a day? Why can't we just have a Slack channel? It just keeps the communication all in one spot. You can have like different channels. It's like Discord for business. And I'm like, why doesn't everybody use this? It's, if you are a business owner with an online team, you need some kind of communication tool like this.
And it's free.
I was trying to get a few of the people at my last job to use Slack, and I was typically the only one there. So the Slack channels just went empty. I'm like, it's a great tool. It's anywhere that you need it to be.
Exactly. Like I use it for myself. Like if I'm writing something that I need to get from my computer to my phone, I just Slack it to myself because it's it's there. It's easy. And a bonus for images as well is that it doesn't diminish the image quality like Facebook Messenger or Discord. It keeps your image quality nice.
One thing I love about Slack, because I always bring it up because I had somebody actually talk about using Discord for their business. I was like, I want you to know Discord does not have a focus on encryption, but at least Slack has a bit more of a focus on encryption and security. Because like I know somebody who actually has a Slack channel on their business. Whenever they have an expense at work, they just take a photo of the receipt. And then they, at the end of the year, they just go through all the receipts, and it's encrypted there.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea. That's like there's a website that called Receipt Bank that you like email receipts to, and then it just kind of keeps track of all of your receipts. It's a paid service though, so I like doing that within a Slack channel. That's actually very interesting. Except that unless you have Slack Pro, I think they only keep messages for up to 90 days.
Yeah, but even Slack Pro's not massively expensive.
No.
And something Amanda's just hit on, so many integrations into Slack when compared with Discord. And I'm going to say, I know Microsoft Teams is becoming very popular, particularly if you're in an Office 365 house, but I'm sorry, Slack blows it away.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing that I always find is Slack is focused on the chat program, whereas Microsoft's trying to do everything, and sometimes you can't do everything.
It's true. Yeah, some of the other programs that I use like every single day are Google Drive because it's the easiest and also most secure way to share documents with your team. Like you can lock them down to only these 5 email addresses. You can open them up to anybody with the link, or you can have them like you're the only one that can view them. And it's so easy to share them. You can download from them. Like I would be lost without Google Drive. One of my clients was a diehard Dropbox fan, and it meant that like everybody on the team, in order to actually upload into the Dropbox, had to pay for Dropbox. And it was like, why would you make everybody on the team do this when you could have Google Drive, which is free up to a certain amount of gigabytes?
I think it's 15 as it stands right now.
I think it's 15.
Which is fantastic.
It is. Like, I think it's excellent. So I think he's slowly transitioning over. At the very least, he's accepting mine and the other writer on the team. We're both submitting Google Drive docs now, and he's not complaining.
I'm actually moving my Dropbox to kind of a combination of iCloud and Google Drive, because Google Drive for even like a terabyte or two is like $10 a month. It's incredibly affordable. It's
so good. Like, I think we pay for an upgraded Google Drive for like my business's account, and I think maybe Tom's account. I'm not actually sure. We have these mystery charges coming out every month, and I can't find a record of them. Please don't tell my accountant. Nigel, if you're listening, shh. It's fine. I know what they're for. I just can't find them.
I am impressed because I used to, on my last podcast, I did the show notes in Google Docs. I remember you were on quite a few episodes of that show, and I loved how easy it was to make the show notes, how easy it was to send a link to anybody. And even like I've done the real-time collaboration. That is incredible. Like I've been in a room with people, and we all have the same Google Doc opened, and we're all modifying it, and no one's losing their place. It's an incredible workflow.
I know, it's amazing. Like, we live in an era where being able to do that and have that connection and communicate, like real-time communication and editing and everything, it's just, we're so lucky. We're so lucky that we don't have to just like take the whiteout or the tipbacks or whatever you call it in your country and like scratch things out and make notes and start again, you know, like it's just, it's a blessing to have something like this.
And it's the end of, you know, because I'm sure you've both done this, where you've got this email chain with version 1, 2, version 4 final,
yep.
version 4 final,
Mm-hmm.
and your document. No, because you've got that live collaboration. You know, whatever you're, you know, I'm speaking to the audience here, whatever your personal views on are using Google for your email, I would really say that Google Docs and Google Drive, you can separate those from Gmail. If you don't want to use Gmail, you don't have to. Just get a...
Mm-hmm.
And the sad thing is, I haven't found anything that's actually better. So, I mean, as much as we love Fastmail for our email and calendars and contacts, they don't give us anywhere near that sort of drive storage. There's no document collab. I might be wrong on that, but no, I don't think there is document collaboration on Fastmail. And you then start looking at, okay, well, let's build our own or use something like Nextcloud. But that's a huge amount of hassle to set up. You might as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, I cannot say enough good things. I am somewhat dubious of Google, but Google Docs and Google Drive, yeah, thumbs up for me.
Yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah.
Because like James, you and I use Apple, but we both have Apple devices, so we're in that ecosystem. But to bring somebody else into that ecosystem is a lot of work.
It is.
Especially the collaboration. Like, I know that actually recently, Jay, you were talking to me about sharing your location, and you're an Android, or I'm an Android and you're an Apple. And I'm like, I actually have no idea how an Apple user can share a location with an Android user. Like, I don't know how to do that.
I think the only way would be something like Signal or the WhatsApp. The Signal, I know, can.
Okay.
I think, Signal or like, I think Signal can.
I don't think WhatsApp can, because I know Amanda and I are on WhatsApp together, and I did not see any way to share my location.
Mm-hmm. Bingo challenge for listeners. If you know a good way to have location sharing between people on different platforms, podcast at crosswires.net. We actually genuinely would love to hear that, so please send that along.
Definitely. Please and thank you.
So we've talked about a lot of the benefits of technology, but one thing on this show we like to talk about too is some of the ethical concerns, and even just some of the concerns with technology. What are some ways that technology can hurt being an influencer?
Being an influencer.
Have you got the wrong show again, Jay?
You aren't Ninja, I'm sorry. But you are an influencer.
I mean, not really. I don't get paid nearly enough to be an influencer.
No, you don't have a gold toilet or a gold shower, so, you know.
Yeah. That's my ADHD brain. It brings in a word from somewhere that I've got like no idea why it brought that word in there. What are some ways technology can hurt being a freelancer?
Okay. And I think that this goes for self-employed people across the board, whether you're freelancing or just running like an actual self-employed business. Being available all the time. Technology just it's like a door that is, you're open for business. Whether this is, and to be honest, I do think it comes down to a lack of boundaries that you have with yourself and the way that you personally connect. Because when I first started out in business, I was like available all the time. Like, I would get up in the morning and work until like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. Like, I was just attached to work. It's because like you're working on Instagram and like you're working while watching TV at night. You're working, you have zero boundary. Like, you're taking your phone with you. So it means like you can work while you're going for a walk. You're working while you're on the toilet. You're working like just it's these things where like you're like, oh, I got an email, like checking it at the most inopportune times. And it really is actually super negative to be available all the time. It's not only terrible for your mental health, it's also I truly believe that it gives like a message to clients and the universe that if you don't value your own time to give yourself a break away from work, that they don't need to value either. So I'm very clear and intentional on my boundaries now. I don't work after don't work at all after 5 o'clock. And most days it's 4, if not 3. I like to try to get away early. And I do not even open my emails on the weekends. Like I don't go in my emails. So like 3 o'clock on a Friday hits, I'm gone until Tuesday, because I take Mondays off. Because I have a whole bunch of like life admin that I get done on a Monday. But 5 years ago, I was working 7 days a week. I was exhausted. I was like not making any money because I was just working all the time doing nothing. Like you physically cannot work like 18 hours a day.
Nope. I did that last year and it's impossible.
It's impossible. You burn out. You feel terrible. You are the opposite of productive. Being available and working more does not lead to bigger and better things.
You know, as someone who's particularly in lockdown, when I was working, I worked, and I was working not self-employed, I was working for a company, and I felt, I'm at home anyway, I might as well get this little bit of extra work done on my script. And what didn't help is that the rest of the team were doing that, and the team leaders were doing that, and so you almost felt obligated to do so. But I cannot stress enough how right Amanda is here, that you need to look after yourself. And you're obviously at the moment, myself and Jay, I think it's fair to say we are probably pushing the candle at both ends, a little bit burning at both ends, because we're trying to get this podcast launched, because we want to, the podcast launched, get all the other bits of the website. And I mean, this haircut is not because I had a haircut. This is me pulling out my hair with WordPress themes.
I saw you doing it literally on video, and it's...
But no, absolutely. And you mentioned you don't check your email. Do you have a clear distinction between your personal email and your business email then?
I do. I have 4 email accounts. One is my business email, one is my podcast email, one's my personal, and then one is kind of a throwaway email. So the business email, like if I'm flipping through my email accounts on my phone over the weekend, I just kind of skip it twice. Like I do my very, very best. I still get notifications, and I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I cheat. I'm like, oh, what do they want? But like 99% of the time, I don't even go in that inbox.
And it's one of the things, obviously you mentioned you're on Android, and I'm sure Android has this functionality, if not, or some app, some third-party thing. One of the things I'm really excited to try more of in iOS is the iOS 16 focus filters. So you could say, when you're in this focus mode, don't show these accounts.
That's interesting.
I definitely know that, because I used to be on a salary years ago, and yeah, finding that balance there was hard. And like last year, I did not put that balance in, especially like when I was doing like Twitch work along with what I'm doing now. Now, when I'm off work for my other job where I clock in, clock out, I don't do anything but work there. I even had to block a coworker because she kept calling me in the evenings about work. And I'm like, even I only talk about work in the evenings. I can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's that balance. You've got to find that balance, because I burned out last year, and I think that's the scary thing about technology.
It's just always there. Use it for good, or taking over the world, whatever.
And one aspect I was curious is keeping data confidential. Do you have any points on that?
A password manager is essential, especially one that allows you to share passwords with clients, or clients share passwords with you that keep them encrypted, because I don't need to know that my client's password is like Princess Kitty Cat 123. Like, I might laugh, but like, I don't actually want to know that. That's your business. So we use LastPass. I think you two use 1Password.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
But we've been with LastPass for 5 years, and it's great.
I actually signed up for LastPass when we were working on the podcast network, and it was actually really cool how I did not get the password to things, but I was able to log into like the Twitter and things like that. And I was like, that's pretty clever.
It is.
It is something that LastPass had. I will be really honest. I'm a huge 1Password fan. Always will be. Mm-hmm. But LastPass had. And do you know what? Actually, I have probably said in the past I don't recommend LastPass. I'm retracting that not recommendation, because they had a recent security issue, and that's not great. But when a friend of mine who really knows his security dug into it, actually, the way that their network design is set up is really actually quite impressive. Now, look, I will always prefer 1Password. That's just a personal choice. 1Password does, if you're on the Teams, I think if you're on a business plan, I'm not sure about the family plan, but on a business plan, you can do a lot of that same sort of permission control where you can say, okay, this person can only fill this password. They can't copy it. They can't print it. Now, one thing that's probably worth, I'm just going to be the security nerd I am. That doesn't stop anyone with a skill set of using the web inspector to then unmask that password field. Because it still has to fill it in the browser, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can go into if you can go into the web inspector and unmask that password field before it's logged in, you can probably still see the password, and your native password managers will still be able to save it. So it doesn't eliminate all the risk, but it's certainly a nice protection barrier.
One of the cool things that James showed me on 1Password was you can now get SSH keys and securely keep the keys inside of 1Password and then fill them in. So like I did SFTP to a server and the key was never on my computer. It was encrypted in 1Password and it used it for the authentication. I was like, that's pretty cool.
And both LastPass and 1Password, which is so important for teams, can support autofilling of two-factor codes. Because if you've got a shared account, say, for example, your podcast our podcast Twitter account, that has two-factor authentication for a very good reason. But if it was just in one of our names, then, if Jay wanted to tweet anything, she'd have to come to me and say, I need the code. Well, if I'm not around, that doesn't help. Whereas LastPass and 1Password, you can put the code in and it's in a shared item.
Oh, that's very clever. I might have to talk to Monty about that.
I love password managers, and I love that everyone, because I think Fast Company recently, when they had their network breach and had a very obscene message go through one of their Medium channels, I think that shows that they were using passwords and sharing passwords unencrypted. And I think it shows when you're a team, it's very important how you secure your passwords.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you were to redo it all again, what would you have done differently in your freelance journey?
I would not be working all the time when we started out. But I would make sure, because when Thom and I first went freelance in August 2017, we intended to travel. Like that was our thing. We wanted to be these digital nomads and just take off and work and travel and have fun. And we did that, but we didn't have the clients to support that. So we kind of left before we were fully established. And we thought we had a nice little finance buffer. It did not last very long when you're not making enough money to rebuild it. If we were to do this all again, I would either make sure that we had a larger buffer before taking off, or make sure that we had more clients, consistent, well-paying clients, because that was a very stressful first year. We traveled from November to January and October to January, something like that. And it was like, oh my God, it was so stressful. Like we didn't leave our computers trying to find work, but we were so stressed trying to find work that we couldn't even find work. It was awful. So yeah, that would be like my number one. And then my number two is to define like what we offer really early. Because we were just kind of like, yeah, we do virtual assistant stuff. This is a 5-hour package, hire us. Whereas like now both of us have niched into kind of what we do. And it's so much clearer to find clients when you're saying like, yes, I specifically write these things or these things. And Thom's like, well, I do like diary management and customer support, and that's it.
And there was something that I think we did talk about it during one of our meetings on the podcast network about the value, that like not undervaluing what you're providing and making sure that like when you offer services to a client that you don't undersell yourself, that it was one of the things that even the course said, how much do you value yourself, and then add to that, because a client's going to want to go as cheap as they can, but don't sell yourself where you're struggling to make
Exactly. It's so important. There's like calculators out there that help freelancers figure out their minimum hourly wage, or like hourly rate. And that's like the bare minimum to give you a roof over your head, basically. But like, what about going out for a meal? What about saving for a holiday? Like include those things so that you're living your life, not just existing in your life.
I love that. I love that phrase. I love that terminology. That's really encouraging. And because it is unfortunately a race to the bottom in terms of what clients expect. Look, I want to put this in the right framing. A lot of the work I've done sort of freelance has been with church organizations.
Okay.
Like Christian organizations. And I think Jay knows where I'm going with this. Look, churches don't pay properly or pay well. Now, some do. You know, people's time and people's services are valuable. You're not paying necessarily for a product that that person's giving you. You're paying for their expertise and their time. And I think if I can say one thing to any, you know, potential clients listening, or, you know, people who want to hire anyone for services, remember, this is a person, and value their time, value what they, you know, what they go through, the fact that they have to pay bills. You know, I think it's fair to say, Amanda, we both, me and you, live in a country right now where we've got a huge cost of living crisis.
It's terrifying. And
a government who, quite frankly, don't give a flying monkeys about...
That sounds like the US.
Well, yes. Yeah, we won't. Let's not get too political. But anyway, that's really good advice.
I can relate to the not being valued for some of the stuff I've done, or I think you both can relate to this. Clients who expect bare minimum. Like, I think, James, I've told you all the stories about the networking I've done and how bad that networking was, but I wasn't able to do better because of the budget my clients gave me.
Yep.
Like running an Ethernet up a wall into the drop ceiling, having plugs and surge protectors in the ceiling, and running past electric. There's a lot of fire code safety that might, but
Cody from Mac Telecom Networks would be screaming right now if he could hear you say that.
Cody, I'm sorry. It was because they were going for me and not somebody who actually knew what she was doing.
Actually, that's a really good question to ask, maybe slightly off, not in our show notes. Do you think, Amanda, there's times where you can actually be really honest with your client and say, actually, no, I don't know that, but here's someone who I know does that sort of work, and I'm going to recommend them instead because I don't feel I can give you the best result?
Yes. 5 years ago, I would be like, yeah, no problem. And like, I would figure it out as I went. Now I am like, if that's not in my wheelhouse, I either say that and recommend somebody, or say that, and unfortunately, I don't actually know anybody that could do that. I have a client right now who I was out for, she's a local client actually, and I was out for coffee with her the other morning. And she said, Amanda, can you, is there any fields that you wouldn't feel comfortable writing in? And I was like, I am terrible at writing about finance. Like, I don't understand all the technical terms of finance to properly get in the fintech mind and like write about it. And I can't, like, it's like a stopper in my brain. I don't know what I'm reading. And it has been a thing for me for many years. I've had people try to give me finance work, and I've even had a finance company hire me, and I'm like, I don't know finance. Why do you want to work with me? And they're like, because you know holistic stuff. And we're a holistic finance company. We want the holistic side. And I was like, okay, but I don't know the finance side. In retrospect, I should have said no, but it was actually very well paid. So I was like, that's another thing as well. Like, oh, the money to the research. But anyways, so now I'm just like, no, I don't, this is not in my wheelhouse. I would love to recommend this person I know, or that person I know, or just, I'm sorry, I don't do that. And unfortunately, I don't know anybody that does, because I don't. However, if you are a finance copywriter, please let me know, because I am actually actively looking for one to refer work to.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, absolutely. And, from my point, I'm trying to build, look, it's no secret, I'm trying to build a freelance career as a IT support, customer support kind of guy. And one thing I want to say, and I think I'd hope this echoes across all of us, is there's plenty of space in industry for us. There's far too much work for one person to ever take on, and you should never be worried about passing someone. If you have someone else trusted even in your own field, but you don't have a capacity, there's nothing wrong with passing that work on. But the question I wanted to ask you about is, it's something I've dealt with, when I've done customer support management, and, I did for a while I was kind of head of operations for a small web startup. And one of my responsibilities was client management, because, but being frank, the other team members were not good at client management. That was my area. But awkward clients, because, we talk about, maybe getting fired by a client. That happens. But what about dealing with those clients who are awkward, who ask too much, or are just not a good fit?
Yeah, they happen to everyone. And thankfully, touch wood, I have a wooden door. Mine haven't been as awkward as some of the people in my virtual assistant community. I've been reading actually today some absolute horror stories about clients not paying. And I'm just like, oh, I feel so bad for you. A very recent one, and by recent, I mean, it has happened within this calendar year, 2022. I had a podcast client hire my agency. And we were to write her show notes. And I was like, okay, she's quite well known as client. She has a very popular podcast and very popular platform. And I was very excited to work on her podcast, but she was the most micromanaging client I have ever had in my life, to the point that I had a call with the manager of the podcast company. And I was like, this is a lot. Like, I feel like I cannot write for this client. And he was like, your work is really good. I'm really happy with it. It's not you, it's her. So, she signed up for 6 months. Let's just do 6 months of work. And I was like, okay. And it just kept happening to the point that I was like, I literally can't do this. Like, I can't spend hours fretting about, have I worded this right? Or have I worded that right? For her to come back with comments and edits and things that she's never even mentioned before about what I'm doing wrong now. And I'm like, I cannot please her. The only way that she can have somebody else write her show notes is if she hires somebody in-house that takes the time to work one-on-one with her to learn absolutely everything, not somebody who has 10 other clients that they're trying to do a podcast for every week, right? Sorry, just a little rant. I had a very bad experience. And anyways, I did not work on her show anymore. And he told her that none of our writers, because I was the second writer to work on the show. And he was like, none of our writers are actually going to work on this. So do it yourself. So micromanaging clients are the worst. If you're hiring an expert to do it, I'm not calling myself an expert, but if you're hiring somebody else to do it, you generally trust their expertise. Let them do their job. Sorry. Going on a full on rant there.
We've unleashed Amanda there, yeah.
I can tell the listeners, sorry, it was my last show. I was Amanda's client.
It was not Jay. Jay is a delight. Other awkward clients are just when they don't communicate enough, because especially when you're working online, you need to talk. If there's a certain amount, something that I need to finish your work, I need that. Otherwise, I can't do your work. Or clients that don't actually know what they want, but then expect results. And you're like, okay, but what results do you want? Because if you don't know what I want, I don't know what to give you.
Or I'll give a wonderful example. Or clients so the client being the organization, and then the people inside the company don't communicate with each other about the requirements for a job. Mm-hmm. That's happened to me. And, obviously, I'm not going to name names, but this was for my church. And we were doing a big event to support basically, look, I'm very open. I'm a Christian, to support prayer for the Ukraine situation. It was a big cross-church event. Wonderful thing to be doing. And our senior minister, and anyone from church, you could go and ask him about this. If you're listening to the show, go and ask him. He called me. It must have been about 10 o'clock at night. And I'm really trying hard not to do an impersonation of this minister, because he's got a very distinct voice. And he said, I need this thing by lunchtime tomorrow. And here's the specs. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that for you. Obviously really keen to help out, because, I had an agreement with him, and I think still do. But as long as I remove the church branding, I can use any design work for my portfolio, which is very reasonable. But anyway, did the work based on what he said, sent it over. And at this point, I hadn't met our new sort of communications manager. I forgot my title he actually has, but anyway, was it operations manager? I hadn't met him yet. I knew he was on board, and I got an email back from him, because I'd CC'd him. I'd been asked to CC me in. He came back and said, this is nice, but it's not what we're looking for. I'm like, but the minister... And it turns out that the minister had got all the wrong information.
Oh, great.
And had asked to include information that we weren't allowed to publish. Some stuff about parking that we weren't allowed But it gets very But I then had to completely redo my work.
No.
And it turns out there wasn't a lunchtime deadline because the event hadn't even been finalised with the other churches yet.
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Definition of awkward clients, you know?
And look, for anyone from my church listening, or indeed senior minister, if you're listening, you know I don't hold, you know that I really respect you, and it's not. That's the thing. Half the time, is it for half the time? I don't think it's ever some of the time it's not personal. Mm-hmm. It's just the way they are, and I think maybe, but sometimes I've definitely had maybe not clients but managers. Yeah,
yeah, and definitely keep a written log. I got in trouble at a job for two things, and it was neither were my fault. Not my current job, past jobs, but like one was I was yelled at for not ordering salt, except I did, and I told them, and the person just didn't see the email that they wrote fully out of salt, and they could in that, and I had said, hey, they're out of salt. You've got to get salt from locally sourced, and they didn't do anything, and they yelled at me. The other one was I was supposed to buy a device for somebody. I went to our finance manager, asked her if I could go ahead with this, and she said nothing. And then I got yelled at for the fact that I was waiting on the finance managers, and it's just like communication is key. And yeah, write down everything. And from that moment on, I would always CC and BCC people, be like, hey, I rocking did this. And so always have like paperwork and notes and stuff like that, because people will turn narratives around. I know that very well.
It's true. Written every day, all day, every day. Absolutely.
And it goes back to Amanda's wonderful recommendation of Slack, because if you've got Slack Pro, you've got the chat transcripts to say, actually, you said this.
Exactly.
I did this.
I had that in another business where I was able to go back to the Slack and be like, yep, I did this. And they're the ones who said no. So, Amanda, I've had a great chat with you, but one thing I always like to end on is get advice on someone wanting to enter a field that someone's in. So what advice would you give to somebody looking to get into freelance work?
I would say don't do what I did. Do not go to sites like Upwork or Fiverr. I have a very big rant about them, and I will not go into that, but I think that they're exploitative. They take too big of a cut, and it's very difficult to find well-paying work on them. And also, it's very difficult. They're not great platforms, and they control too much. They value this like $5 VA, which you should never charge $5 rates to be a VA. And yeah, so avoid platforms like that, please. Do it yourself. Go independent. Set up a landing page with your rates or something that just says, like, if you're starting out as a virtual assistant, for example, like a 5-hour package for $125, like that's $25 an hour, or 125 pounds. Like that's a really decent starting rate for a virtual assistant. Because remember that you're self-employed. Nobody's paying your taxes. You have to do that now. Like your national insurance, your, if you're in America, your health stuff, your health benefits and stuff, like that's all coming out of your pocket now. Your employer isn't doing this. So respect your rates, and just go alone. You can find clients, as a virtual assistant, in Facebook groups. First and foremost, that is the number one place where 95% of people that I know get their clients is through Facebook groups, and then word of mouth. And other social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram are also fantastic for finding clients, especially LinkedIn. It's really good. Network, go to your local business networks. Like I know here in Belfast, there's quite a few places for budding entrepreneurs, budding freelancers, and like networks to join, where you can easily make friends and have like that referral network. And then the other thing, and I know I just said social media is so good to like get clients, but make a mailing list, because you don't own social media, but you do own the email addresses in your mailing list. So you always have a way to communicate with the people that want to hear from you.
And would you recommend using something like MailChimp or something similar rather than maybe just your own address book?
Yes, 100%. Use something. MailChimp, MailerLite, Pretty Mail, insert mailing service here. I don't know. There's so many. I can't even think of the big one that like most of big online entrepreneurs, ConvertKit, that's what it's called, is huge. It's expensive though. So there's free options on MailChimp and MailerLite. FYI.
I want to bring up a few points about that because I used to run a mailing program for two different companies. MailChimp will make sure that the stuff gets delivered, so there's no having it get marked as spam. If you send too many things at the same time from an email, your ISP will think you're spam. You know, like MailChimp will delay sending over time. They'll make sure things get through, and it helps avoid the accidental CC of everybody, and everybody has all of your clients, and it turns into a huge reply all thread. So yeah, I would say do that. And it looks professional if you're sending it as a thing, because it shows, I always believe that if you can be as professional as you can and show professionalism, then your clients will look at you a little bit better than just somebody else who may be doing it very amateurish, I would say.
And there's also, I mean, it's fair to say, again, I think certainly, I don't know the ins and outs of US privacy laws, but if I say the initial was GDPR for me and Amanda,
yep,
I don't, unless you are really, really good, you can't manage all that compliance stuff yourself.
No.
Using MailChimp or whatever service, as long as they are GDPR compliant and allow people to opt in and more importantly, opt out and to erase their data, those are kind of the fundamentals of a GDPR compliant mailing list.
And I had to study that heavily last year because the business I was at was a business that does both that does both work in the US and in the EU.
All the nightmares of when GDPR came in and we were like, so many people are just spamming me, but you're not allowed to do that because I didn't give you permission. Whoa.
Yeah, and I do love like the latest iOS if it's done well, and I've noticed it on MailChimp letters. If somebody doesn't want your email, at the top it says, "Hey, do you want to subscribe?" It's so easy just to press that, and it is gone. And that's something things like places like MailChimp will automate that.
That's great.
So, Amanda, I have had such a great time talking with you, and like I know we've talked so much.
This has been great.
Where can people find you? Because you are all over the internet, and I'm just going to put out my highest recommendation. That I want our viewers to follow your podcast, follow you, because you are one of the bright spots on my timeline. And I'm not just saying that because you're like one of my close friends, but you always are a person I love listening to and seeing on the internet.
Thank you so much. That was very nice of you to say. Yes, you can find me on all social medias, me personally at Fala moja krava, which means thank you, my cow in Serbian.
I was wondering. Okay.
I have thought all the time, like very often about changing it, but also I don't want to because I've had it for like 20 years and I just don't really want to, but it's not professional and it's not easy to say and it's not easy to spell, but it's mine. So there you go. You can also find my website at soulbodygeek.com and Geek Herring at Geek Herring everywhere for all things business, I guess. Go to thankfulcow.com and that's the business that I have with Thom, my fiance.
And James, with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to you so I don't mess up the outro.
But I will just say thank you both so much for having me on. This was an absolute delight. Our
pleasure. Our pleasure.
I loved having you both finally meet.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, this is one of the nice things about this podcast, getting to meet wonderful new people, and especially when we're, either, sort of one of our friends who's meeting the other. Yeah, it's great. So, as Jay said, to not botch the outro, and you are going to get better at this, honestly.
Okay, good.
Mostly because we're going to pre-record our outros from now on.
That makes such a difference.
Oh, yeah. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Head over to crosswires.net for all the show notes. And, of course, we'll have all the links to all of Amanda's sites. Head over to crosswires.net/YouTube for our YouTube content. You can follow us on Twitter at CrosswiresMG for the show itself. I'm on Twitter at JS Billsborough.
I am on Twitter at 1J at a time, JAE. Also on Instagram there as well. I know that's a point of contention between me and James. Is that Instagram?
You sell your soul to fate to Meta as much as you want. Just don't involve me in it, all right?
Okay, sounds good. Mark Zuckerberg is now owns my life and all that. So everyone should join Meta because Meta is the future.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay. No, Jay.
And on that note,
On that note, if you want to yell at Jay for that last comment, please, or any other comments you may have, please don't actually yell at Jay. Podcast@crosswires.net. And if you've liked what we've done, first of all, any likes in podcast directories are awesome. Oh, of course, head over to Good Pods. If you're a Good Pods listener, start a discussion there because we'll always reply. But if you want to financially support us, yes, this is the first time we're saying this, head over to ko-fi.com/crosswires, and anything you can spare is great. We are in the middle of launching a Patreon as well. We're going to announce that soon. We are in the middle of getting a new website ready, and we'll have much easier links to all the donation stuff once that's live. But any support you can give us, there are bills to pay. We do have a rather ambitious goal. Okay, I'm going to announce it. We have a goal. If we can hit £1,200, yes, that's a lot of money. That's going to allow me and Jay to both buy Valve Steam Decks for streaming, because we've had a genius idea of how, rather than having a gaming PC each, we'll have Steam Decks and plug them into HDMI capture boxes.
great idea.
Because, yeah, why not?
Because one thing that we are trying to do as well is we are looking at our setups and we're looking at how are they in terms of environmental sustainability. Like I've moved a lot of my stuff over to a M1 Mac, which sounds fancy, but it's also because of its energy usage and it's lower. And right now, having a gaming PC is a lot of extra of electricity, and I want to reduce my footprint as much as I can.
I mean, just as a final aside, is anybody else as scared as I am about these new 4000 series NVIDIA cards using what is up to 650 watts of power?
Yeah.
How have we got to that point? That's for a whole different episode, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Amanda, for your time. As Jay said, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.